Hello everybody, my name is Jared Bendis and you're here because you're looking for free resources for your media project. Now, you're here possibly because you're one of my students. And if you're one of my students, then these are not just guidelines for you, but they're the rules. You might be a student of some other professor who's assigned you to watch this video. And in that case, these may be more than guidelines as well. They might be the rules. Or you might just be some really interested person who wants to use media better, who cares about copyright and who wants to learn where's the best stuff out there? How do I know what I should be looking at? Now, for you, you can do whatever you want. But be careful. I am not a lawyer, and this is not a legal guide. This is a guide on how we should do best practices. Best practices are a very useful thing. At the end of the day, anybody can sue you for anything. Yay! And of course, with a lawyer and a judge and the courts, you can have it thrown out, or you could win, or you could lose. The goal, of course, is not to win or to lose, but not to be sued. So we're going to start off by trying to come up with the best practices that we can. And as we go further and further in this video, we're going to get a little bit more dangerous and a little bit more iffy, and are going to take our time to understand what are the considerations that we need. Now, just be aware, there's a lot of materials out there. There's an enormous amount of materials out there, and a lot of it you can use, and a lot of it you can't. So let's get started. We start off in Google. Yay, Google, because that's where you go, right? I need a picture of banana. So you come over here and you type in banana. Oops, you spell it right. You even spell it wrong. And you get a picture of a banana. And if I click on images, you're going to go, yay, Google Images. All these pictures are out there. And because they're out there, I can use... No. Just because they're online does not mean you can use them. Just because somebody has put something where other people can see it in public does not make it in the public domain. That's a different thing. The public domain is not a place. There is no place called the public domain. The public domain is a legal standing. It means that nobody owns it anymore. Now, this is a really tricky thing for people because if you come over here to the internet and you search for Jared Bendis, yay, you're going to find a lot of things about me. Look at that, all those pictures of me. Now, just because they're there, does it mean you can use them? No. It means that somebody put a picture of me online. Modern American copyright law, which is what we're going to start with today, modern American copyright law says that the moment something is affixed, it becomes real, it is copyrighted to the person that created it, with some exceptions. This means that the moment the photo is taken digitally or in print, the moment that the words are written down, the moment things become real, they're copyrighted. You don't have to file with the Copyright Office, though you can. It's really fun if you do. You don't have to file with the Copyright Office, but if you do, you get more protections. The idea is simply this. You can't copyright an idea. Simple as that. It's got to be real. It's got to be a thing. You're copyrighting this instance of that thing. You may have heard, well, if I modify it a little bit or if I change it a certain percentage, no. Well, those are interesting guidelines. They really aren't at the heart of copyright. How much you change of something percentage-wise, those are great ways of working, but they are not necessarily legally true. So we've got to be very careful about that. Now, again, all these pictures are here of me, which is pretty awesome. Now, if I look on here, you're going to see that in Google Tools, I could come over here and say usage rights. And if I click on usage rights and say commercial and other licenses, you're going to find that there are pictures that pop up. None of them of me. That's interesting. If I click on Creative Commons licenses, you're going to find pictures of me, which may or may not be true. Because believe it or not, while Google Images is a great way of finding images, it's not a great way of finding images based on legal standings. So I avoid using Google Images when I'm trying to make sure whether I can or can't do something. Because believe it or not, these pictures of me were not taken by me and were not posted by me. And so while the person online has said, do whatever you want with them, do they really have the right to say that? And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. The idea is this. We're going to go through from easy to difficult about what you can use and when you can use it. Now, the easiest thing you can do is use things that have no copyright associated with them whatsoever. And things that have no copyright associated with them, things that are literally do not belong to anyone are called in the public domain. That's pretty awesome. So how does something become in the public domain? Well, one way is if it's old. Now, the cool thing about it is on January 1st every year, we have Public Domain Day. I love Public Domain Day because every year more things enter the public domain because of their age. They age out. And so we find out what they are. And of course, this is really fun. Duke on their website has this cool thing where they list all the things that are going to be, all the great things that are going to be there. For instance, The Great Gatsby became in the public domain on January 1st of 2021. That means that if I wanted to, I could rewrite The Great Gatsby. I could publish The Great Gatsby and say, by Jared Bendis instead of F. Scott Fitzgerald. Everyone would laugh at me, but I could legally do it. I could make my own edition of it. All these things are there. Notice, by the way, it says Franz Kafka, The Trial in German, because the English translation will have its own copyright. And that's very important to realize, is that every edition afterwards becomes its own derivative that has its own copyright associated with it. There are films. There's music. Sweet Georgia Brown. This is great. Now, does that mean if somebody else were to record Sweet Georgia Brown? No. That means the music itself and any recordings from 1925 prior are in the public domain. If I were to record Sweet Georgia Brown right now, you couldn't use a copy of it because my recording has its own copyright associated with it. But there's a lot of cool things. Yes, sir, that's my baby. So many good things are right here in the public domain. Again, that's because they aged out. Anything before 1925 and older that have been published. There's also people out there, really, really good people, who just say, you know what? I want everything I make in the public domain. They literally give up their copyright at the moment of creation. And we're going to talk about how to look for those things as we go forward. There are also certain things that cannot be copyrighted. Actually, you can't copyright a form, apparently. You can't copyright a recipe, though you can copyright the color commentary and the pictures, the list of ingredients, the instructions. Technically, those are patentable, but they're not copyrightable. It's a whole other thing. When you buy a cookbook, you're actually paying for the stories and the pictures, not the recipes themselves. It's kind of a fun thing. The other thing here is that things that are created by the federal government, not the state or the city, but the federal government in the course of their normal duties, also because they're paid by the federal government, your tax dollars at work, they also are in the public domain. So you're going to find a lot of things that were created by the feds that are out there for you to use, which is pretty neat. So the public domain is quite big. Again, first we deal with old, but let's take a look over here at a really fun place I like to look, which is Flickr. Flickr is a website where people post images. Matter of fact, not just people post images, but the government, many government agencies post their images to Flickr as well. If I were to come over here and look for kittens, love kittens, right? Yay, kittens. If I were to come over here and look for kittens, you would find all of these kittens, but wait. Let's come over here and click on, and from any license, let's look on no known copyright restrictions, which basically means anybody can use them. And if I come over here and look at these pictures, you're going to find, oh, really cute pictures. Let's take a look at Hello Kitty by James Case. And if I scroll down, you're going to see public domain and a little zero by it. Now, you may have heard of Creative Commons licenses, and this Creative Commons, of course, is a great way of standardizing how people give permissions. See, I can make my own little contract up. I can say, you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this. But the Creative Commons organization has sat together and created a bunch of standards in which I can say, I will do this, this, or this. And of course, it makes it easier for people to understand. Everyone doesn't have to read everyone else's fine print. Creative Commons 0 means no copyright. That means literally it is in the public domain. And again, the public domain and Creative Commons 0 are the same thing. The cool thing is it was called the public domain. Creative Commons 0 and the public domain are the same thing. It's nice to be able to have it in the Creative Commons designation because we're going to look at the other Creative Commons licenses in a minute. This means that you can do anything. You can copy, modify, distribute, perform the work even for commercial purposes without asking permission. And there you go. And it says that you can do whatever you want with it. Now, you have to be very careful, by the way, because when using or citing the work, you should not imply endorsement of the author or the affirmer. You have to make sure that you're not putting words in people's mouths. That's actually a really important thing along the way, because you might find an image in the public domain, but that does not mean you can use it to defame somebody or to say that somebody believes something or means something that they don't. So we've got to be very careful about that. But what that means here is that I can download this picture, which is so awesome. I can download the original size, 1024 by 768, and I could make bags, I could make pillows, I could make this a talking head, I could do whatever I want with it, sell it, give it away, do whatever I want, no questions asked. Now, if you're one of my students and you're in an academic setting, I would still want a citation. I would still want you to say that you didn't take the photo, and that citation would not be this long URL. It would literally be 3 pieces of information: the title, Hello Kitty, the author, James Case, and what website you got it from, Flickr. Hello Kitty by James Case via Flickr. That's all I want as a citation. Now, citations, by the way, do not make it legal to steal things out other places, and which we're going to get to in a minute. If this was a full copyright protection, just citing it isn't good enough. I always joke to people, if I stole your watch, but I told everybody I stole the watch from you, that wouldn't make you feel any better. A citation is an academic integrity thing. It is not about the legal ownership of an item. So citations are important because I'd like to know where you got your materials from. But if you were doing this for your own project, for your own whatever, no citations needed. If the item is in the public domain, you don't have to tell anybody where you got it from. That's cool. Now, you might want to keep a copy of where you got it from, in case somebody goes, are you sure that was in the public domain? Or in case James Case says, I didn't put that online, and you could be able to track it down and say, no, there it is. There's my permission. There's my documents. Remember, there's the idea that you're doing the right thing, and there's the idea of basically being able to prove that you did the right thing. So it's pretty awesome, by the way. If I click on back to search, every single one of these is in the public domain. And that's pretty awesome. No known copyright restrictions. Really, really fun. If I come down here and I click on U.S. government works, again, that's an interesting one right here. If I click on Gray Fox Puppies, what you're going to find out is this was done by the Department of Energy's Oak Ridge photo stream, and it's a United States government work, which of course means it technically is in the public domain. But that's kind of neat how they actually designate it a little bit differently. And look, we've got this picture. And I like how they designate it differently as well, because again, they have copyright exceptions for U.S. government works, and you can read more about them later. Not everything that appears on a government website is government work. Again, that's very important to remember, because if you see it on a government website, it may have been purchased by the government. I'll always use NASA as a great example. NASA uses some third-party contractors. So just because you saw it on NASA's website, and they may have licensed it, they may have purchased it, they may not have generated it themselves. So you do need to do some research if you're not sure. But in this case, we're golden, and we've got a nice little picture of a kitten, and that's awesome. So Flickr's been a great place to look for these things. Now, we're going to come back to Flickr in a little bit, because Flickr's got so much good stuff on it. I'm going to go back to any license so we can see all of kittendom. Let me click on this first picture and see if it's a full copyright. There we go. All rights reserved. Well, then why'd he post it? Because he wanted to. Why not? He's allowed to post this picture and say, you may look, but you may not touch. That's the world in which we live. There's nothing wrong with that. He has a right to say that. And of course, all rights reserved. He might want you to contact him to purchase this picture for whatever reason. He might not want to be part of the public domain world or the Creative Commons world or any of these licensing worlds. He might have his own agenda. And of course, that does not mean if I were to say kitten by Dorrance or via Flickr that I would be legal. I would be ethical, but I would be still illegal, and we've got to be careful about that. So there you go. Cool that we can see it. Full copyright. We're not even going to go near it. There's also a really cool website called openclipart.org. It actually used to be bigger, then it got smaller, then it got bigger again. This is a user-driven website. People post all sorts of clip art, and you're going to find, oh my goodness, so many things. The sources of them vary, by the way, and it's ad-driven, so you're going to see ads pop up. So you're going to find there's this picture over here. Almost everything they've got is, I think everything is vector-based, which is pretty neat. And you can also download a large, medium, and small bitmaps. I can come over here. I can look to see what other types of items this person has uploaded. And again, it's interesting where they're going to show this is an old 1702 depiction. Now, we have to be careful with some of these websites. And I don't just mean OpenClipArt. I mean OpenClipArt. I mean Flickr. Just because it says in the public domain doesn't mean it 100% is. People are often stupid. They make mistakes. They post things that they shouldn't have. And they tell people what they think is real, but it isn't. If you see a picture of Mickey Mouse here, don't believe it. use some common sense along the way. That being said, there are some cool things on here. So if I click on cassette, you're going to find all of these cassettes. And sometimes people will say, I made this came from such and such a source, and I know that it's in the public domain. So yeah, click around and see this. And again, pretty neat. And it says it's in the public domain, so we sort of believe them. It came from this website, and there, at least you've done your due diligence. If you find out you're wrong, now here's a great one. It says Dolby on it. That's a trademark. Like that should not be there. That is a trademark. This area right here is a trademark. This would actually get you in trouble. So this is a quick example that I just stumbled upon of something that you have to go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So lots of cool things out here, but you can sort of go through and find there's a lot of things that are there. Now here's a great one. This is no, I think this one's pretty good. So we got to go through and look at things, and again, be very, very careful along the way. Good. So again, the public domain is quite big. We've got Flickr as a great source, Open Clipart is a great source, and one of my other favorites is Wikimedia Commons, commons.wikimedia.org. And what's great about them is, again, it's where all the images for Wikipedia are. And if I were to type in banana, you would find all these pictures of bananas. And if I were to come over here and click on licenses, if I were to say no restrictions, which means public domain, I would find all these great banana pictures. Now, if I decided I wanted to use Q503, I would come over here, and again, I could download the original image, I could do whatever I want, it's in the public domain, but if as a student I wanted to use it in a project, I would say Banana Q503 by Sandra, however you can pronounce that last name, via Wikimedia Commons. And that's how I would put this together. So again, there's a difference between using it for a student project where your professor lays down for you how they expect you to cite your sources versus your own project where, again, if it's in the public domain, do whatever you want. So that's really, really fun. So this goes back to, again, this idea of what is the public domain. People just put stuff out there. It's old, federally created, easy, easy, easy. You literally can do what you want. Now, there's some other cool things out here as well. And one of my favorite examples, because I'm from Cleveland, is from the Cleveland Museum of Art. Now, the Cleveland Museum of Art has put online an open access collection of over 37,644 images. Now, if you look over here and I click on Twilight in the Wilderness, you're like, all right, this painting's from 1860. So the painting is in the public domain, but they did not have to put online the super, super high-res image, which they did. Not only do they put online a super high-res image, but when you go to download it, you're actually downloading a high-resolution uncompressed TIFF. That's how awesome the Cleveland Museum of Art is. So they've done this. I'm going to click on alternate views. You're actually going to find that there are different images of it, which is even neater. Let me come back for a moment, though, and talk a little bit more about how awesome the Cleveland Museum of Art has done with their collection. Let me come over here and type in, let me do a search. Let's come over here. We go. Search for kitten. I don't think we're going to find any kittens. We'll find out. If I were to come over here and look for kittens, I'm expecting to find very few kittens. Here we go. 2. Now, there's no question here that this etching from 1895 is in the public domain. There it is. It's a scan of something that's been published. But interestingly enough, due to a strange bit of copyright twist, a 3-dimensional item can have a new copyright associated with it because every photograph of a 3-dimensional item is considered an original item. So while a scan of a 2-dimensional item is considered a copy of it, and there it is, just that's what it is, it has no copyright associated with it, that's new to it. A photograph of this basket is considered to be has a copyright associated with it. So if I take a photo of it and you take a photo of it and you take a photo of it, our particular artistic eye creates a new original work. And so this photo should be copyrighted by the Cleveland Museum of Art. But they have been gracious to say, you know what, we are going to declare this image is in the public domain as well. And that is something they didn't need to do and they chose to do. And again, high resolution images of artifacts that do not need to be in the public domain, they placed in the public domain. This is pretty awesome. And again, I want to remind you that a photograph of a sculpture that is in the public domain is not automatically in the public domain. So the idea is if I look for a picture of the Venus de Milo, my photograph is copyrighted to me and your photograph is copyrighted to you. But the Cleveland Museum of Art, their photographs, when they want to, they've been gracious enough to say, no, we're going to give these away as well. And I have to be very, very clear that this is unique because, again, they could have made this a copyrighted image and they decided not to, which is pretty awesome. Thank you, Cleveland Museum of Art. So that being said, we've got, again, the public domain. Now we're going to go back a little bit, and we're going to go back to Flickr, and instead of going to the public domain or full copyright, we're going to start looking at the nature of what a Creative Commons license is. There's different Creative Commons licenses out there, and they have certain things in common, and there's certain things that we need to ask ourselves. This is where we start to ask ourselves about the fine print. What are you going to do with it? What's it for? Is the project commercial? Or is the project not commercial? That's question number one. If I'm putting out a newsletter, that's not commercial. If I'm making a video game and I'm giving it away, that's not commercial. If I'm putting a video on YouTube, that's not commercial. If I think I'm going to monetize it, that might be commercial. If I'm going to sell it, that definitely is commercial. So you need to ask yourself at the very beginning, where is the line of commerciality that you're going to be dealing with? And by the way, you have to make the decision about what it is, where you draw that line. You don't want to get sued, but you also want to use common sense. So if I were to come over here, I could go to commercial use allowed, and that's a big one, whether commercial use allowed or not. Now, the other thing you're going to see here is modifications allowed. Why is modifications allowed so important? Well, if I come over here to commercial use allowed and click on this kitten, you're going to find it says some rights reserved. I love this kitten, by the way. And it says I'm free to share, which of course is what I need to do, and adapt, and this is the modification clause. Remix, transform, build upon the materials for any purpose, even commercially. If I was just making a newsletter, I might put the kitten in there. I don't need to adapt it. I don't need to change it. I just need to include it. If I was doing a presentation, we'll get back to presentations later, but if I was doing a presentation and I wanted to go, and here's a kitten, then I don't need to change it at all. But most of the things that we do, I'm going to want to cut it out, put words in its mouth, change the colors, build something with it. Then I need to make sure I found the adapt license, the modification license. It's very important to understand the difference between adapt and remix versus just use as is. In my experience, I rarely use as is. So I always look for modification. You probably will as well. Under the following terms, attribution, you must give appropriate credit, provide a link to the license, and indicate if changes were made. 3 things. Appropriate credit. Remember what I already said. Who, what, where. Very important now that this becomes legal. A link to the license, which means you're going to need to come over here and link to the Attribution 2.0 generic license and say, I modified it. So in my credits, I would say, kitten modified, and I would put the license in there somewhere. Now, you don't have to do it at the exact moment. You have to put it in an appropriate place, in a reasonable manner. Reasonable manner. That does not mean that every time an image pops up, I'm going to go, full credits over there. I always joke about this. Imagine like the credits of a movie were to come through, and the moment Brad Pitt appears the first time, they go, Brad Pitt! That's not how that works. The credits come up, the movie continues, the credits go on at the end. They don't keep popping things up. They don't footnote and cite your movie as you go. It's not what they do. So the same thing kind of comes over here. Let's go back a little bit. So again, we have these some rights reserved, and we're good to go here. So a lot of times we're going to be looking at Creative Commons 2, which is great. So I have to cite them, not just me, the teacher, but you, no matter what you do, would need to cite them, and you need to say, who it was, what you changed, and link back to this. All right, let's keep going. There are some things, so now instead of commercial use allowed, I'm going to say commercial and modifications allowed. So now you're going to keep changing what the rules are. By the way, every time I do this, I'm going to probably bookmark or save where I got these things from so I don't lose them later on. So the worst thing you could possibly do is lose where you got your stuff from. I come over here and take a look at this kitten. This kitten is good. Let me actually scroll through some kittens until I find one that makes me nervous. And I say makes me nervous, not the kitten makes me nervous, but the rules make me nervous. Here's one where the rules make me nervous. Do you see that little arrow in a circle over there? This is the most important thing I'm going to tell you today that is the most difficult part of Creative Commons. And if I click on this, what you're going to see is this is not just an attribution, but it's an attribution share-alike license. I despise the share-alike license. I don't despise it. First of all, anybody who puts their stuff out there, put whatever license out there you want. Thank you for being part of the community that says, here, you can use it. But The share-alike license is difficult because it requires more work for you, the user, and you need to be careful about it. Share and adapt, we already knew that because that's what I required. Attribution share-alike. If you remix, transform, or build upon the material, you must distribute your contributions under the same license as the original. That means your final product has to have a share-alike license. You know what? You don't have to otherwise. So if I could actually take and make a video where I grabbed all the bits and pieces from other people and then said full copyright of at least the stuff that I made. And with this version, the moment you put one share-alike piece into your work must be posted as share-alike. That's really what this is saying. Now, there are some nuances here, but because there are nuances, my advice is, at this stage of the game, if you're watching this video, stay away from the share-alike license. You see this little thing? You see the SA? Let's just avoid it for now. Later on, you might get better with it, but let's avoid it for now. Now, let's go back over here to the Cleveland Museum of Art. They don't have share-alike license. They literally have open access or copyright. It's on or it's off. It's great. By the way, Cleveland Museum of Art's not the only one doing this. There's lots of art museums out there that have various huge collections out there. Cleveland's, by the way, just the only ones who put their files out as ultra-high res and completely uncompressed. Some museums out there are even going to say that some of their two-dimensional scans are Creative Commons license attribution. You're like, is that legal? And the answer is, not really. Some people are literally trying to say things that they don't own that they put online that you have to cite them for. It gets iffy and it gets dangerous because at the end of the day, this image is in the public domain whether or not the museum tells you it is. It's a two-dimensional image that was published. I think it was published. Let's assume it was published. That was published pre-1925, which means whether or not the website indicated it was in the public domain, it is in the public domain. They don't have to tell you it is. It is. Again, they are gracious because they're giving you the high-res image of it. Open clip art, everything here is in the public domain. Wikimedia Commons, now if we come over here and say use with attribution, this would be all of the attribution licenses. And if we say use with attribution and same license, this is going to be one of the ones that if we look carefully, it's going to say share alike. And that's the share alike license, which again, I avoid. So you're going to see there's huge categories that are listed here that make your life easier. Again, public domain's at the top, do whatever you want. The Creative Commons, attribution license is great, but you need to give credit. The share alike license, you got to give credit and you've got to put your own stuff out there in the same way. So far, so good? I hope so, because I've given you some really good places to look and also some very good considerations to think about as you're going to use these materials. Let's move on to something like stock materials. So here's a company called Dreamstime. There's a lot of companies out there, by the way. And these are commercial sites that literally sell you materials, royalty-free materials. Now, the dangerous part about this is if I want to use this banana split, I can actually purchase a copy. And the cool thing about purchasing a copy is it depends on the resolution, depends on how much you pay. Some places it's by ticket, some places it's by monthly subscriptions. But there's also something called an extended license. And so what ends up happening is you've got to read the fine print carefully. Because sometimes there's a difference between whether you can use it on the web, whether you can use it in print. Sometimes there are always fine prints. I teach game design, so I'm always trying to do things inside of video games or inside of print games. And not every single one of these licenses works in the same way. So when you start going to these royalty-free companies, you start having to read the fine print. The fine print in the easier ones was either, whatever you want citations, whatever you want citations, share backwards. Now we have to read the fine print of each of these companies, and it becomes a little more challenging and a lot more expensive. Sometimes they're going to say, good for the first 20,000 copies, or first for the good, and you really have to keep track of all of this. So while it's great to find there's some good stuff out there, the other thing you're going to find is there's a lot of disreputable companies out there. This is a reputable company, but there's going to be ones out there where you're going to, wait a second, I found the same thing on this other site, blah, blah, blah. Another example I'm going to give real fast is fonts. You just assume that you can use whatever font wherever you want, but that's not true. Let me come over to defont.com. I forgot to bring this one up earlier. If I come over here to defont.com, what you're going to find is like this one over here, Kiss Boom. It's free for personal use. It's free for personal use. You can't just include the things that you make in a commercial sense. Free for personal use, 100% free. Now that's much better. So if you start looking at these fonts, you realize that if you're going to use a font, sometimes you have to buy the font. And when you buy the font, there are sometimes restrictions about how you can use that font. Again, I keep very, very good track of what font am I using, where did I get that font, what are the rules around that font. I know I'm extra careful, but we live in a digital age, and if you're going to make something, that assumes that you are a creator. You hopefully want people to respect your materials, which means that you should be respecting other people's materials. And even if you're that kind of person who says, I'm going to give it all away, that's great. And you have the right to give away everything that you make. But shouldn't you respect that it's a right? That it's a right that you chose to give it away. Not that you live in a world where people grab whatever they want. By the way, there are plenty of really good people out there. Speaking of good people, let's talk about one of my favorite people on the internet when it comes to copyright. And that would be one Kevin MacLeod. Kevin MacLeod is the king of internet music. If you're all over the web, you're going to hear Kevin MacLeod everywhere. And what makes Kevin MacLeod and his website Incompetech so wonderful is that he makes royalty-free music. Now, when it comes to music, music is such a challenge. Let's talk about music. If I wanted to use a Bob Dylan song in my video, I would have to contact and pay a license to use that recording in my video. And it would not be cheap, and I would have to negotiate. All right, because it's under copyright. I just can't do it. Now, if I wanted to record my own Bob Dylan song, I want to grab a guitar and sing it, I can't do that either. Because the song itself has a copyright, and if I were to perform that song, my recording would have a copyright, but they would have licenses to it as well. The cool thing is what's called a mechanical license, is that I can actually force that relationship. I can actually go to the agency, I think it's Harry Fox in the United States, and say, I would like to record a copy of Bob Dylan's Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. And they'd go, how many copies are you going to record? And I'm going to say 10,000 on CD. And they go, great, that'll be 9 cents a song, and they'll write it up, and it's very, very easy to do. It's a known quantity. I could record a cover without necessarily, talking to Bob Dylan. It's part of the way that things work in the US. It's pretty neat. So that's easy. The same thing goes the other way around. For instance, I mentioned earlier, Sweet Georgia Brown is now in the public domain, which means that I can record a copy of it, but nobody can use my recording because my recording has a copyright. And we see this a lot with orchestral music. The music is in the public the sheet music in the public domain, but the recording is a copyright, and you have to know about that. Also, you have to be careful with sheet music because some of the arrangements are copyrighted. If somebody were to take a piece of music and then modify it into creating a beautiful single guitar piece of it, that's its own copyright because they created something from something else. That's the way copyright works. What I like about this royalty-free music, though, is not just about the fact that it's royalty-free. In other words, you don't have to pay every time it's recorded. But he's made it very easy, and he explains it so well. If I were to come over here and click on royalty-free music and grab one song, come over here to the website. So let's take a look over here at Pleasant Porridge. I'm not even going to listen to it. We assume it's wonderful. If I were to click on download, it's going to give me 2 license options. One of them is the free license, which of course is free, and I can use it commercially, and I get the MP3. I cannot use it with attribution. I must cite it, and I don't get any 24-hour support, and of course I'm not supporting him, which is true. That being said, if you don't want to cite it, if you just want to use the music and not have to put his name in your project, you can pay him 20 euros. There's it. And I love the fact that he's literally saying, listen, you either use my name or you pay me. It's pretty awesome. If I choose the free license, by the way, and I click accept the use, you're going to find out that you must use this exact 3-line in your project. I use it all the time. I put it in my YouTube. There it is. And I put it in the video, and I put it in the description as well so that I know where it is. And it's pretty awesome that he does this. Now, when it comes to YouTube, you're like, YouTube, I can put anything on YouTube because I've seen everything on YouTube, and that is not the case at all. YouTube is a disaster for teaching copyright. Each one of these scenarios, we learn a little bit more about how the business world works. Now, if I were to put a song on my website, a video on my website, and I were to put an Aerosmith song behind it, Well, Aerosmith's music agency would probably track me down, send me a cease and desist order, sue me, and shut down my website, because that's the way it works. As they should, by the way. I have no right to use their music. But if I were to put an Aerosmith song in one of my videos on a YouTube channel, well, YouTube, they're sick of shutting me down. They would, by the way, they would catch it instantly and say, that's Aerosmith, get off YouTube. But instead of doing that, what they do instead is they've already made side deals with all these major corporations because they're big. And instead of shutting me down, they're going to flag it as an Aerosmith song, go into their back end deal, and instead of me getting, ad revenue the way I would get for putting stuff on YouTube, instead of me getting ad revenue, they're going to link it back to Aerosmith's publisher, and Aerosmith's going to get the ads for my video. So Aerosmith's made a deal that said, we're okay with people violating our copyright because we know that we're going to do a side deal with you at a later date. It doesn't teach the modern audiences anything about copyright because they just figured you can do whatever you want, not realizing that behind the scenes, things have been done on their behalf. And again, each scenario is different. So you've got to be very careful. Sometimes you violate somebody's copyright and they do shut you down. Sometimes you violate somebody's copyright and all of a sudden they get ad revenue. So each scenario is going to be different. So it is important to realize that, again, just because someone else did it, and again, is that really how we want to work? We want to take this as an additive approach. We are doing this because we're supposed to, not doing bad things until someone tells us to stop. That's the way that copyright works. And as an educator, that's the way I want you to work as well. All right. So again, we've got Kevin MacLeod and his wonderful, wonderful film music. Thank you, Kevin. Now, that's great for film music. What about like sound effects? Well, if I come over here at the freesound.org, I love freesound.org. Freesound.org is a wonderful website. There are multiple websites out there like this. Each one of them has their own fine print. If I come over to freesound.org, which you do need to log into, by the way, if I were to come over here and look up the word boom, you would find that there are, let's see, here we go. Search for the word boom. You're going to find many, 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 many copies of the word boom. Matter of fact, 2,971 copies of the word boom. 327 of them are attribution non-commercial. We don't want those. We want commercial ones. Hell, we don't even want the attributions. We're going to go right for Creative Commons 0. Why not? Why not go for the public domain ones? And we're going to find that there's some stuff in the public domain. So I can click on this, and there it goes, slam and fire. Now, it may be good, it may be bad, because somebody put the stuff out there. Again, we still need to use common sense about, is this really in the public domain? Did the person recording this really have the right to? For the most part, we're going to find it's true. And if we like somebody, by the way, we're going to click over here on Contramandum and say, look at this. They've got their own website. They've been there for 6 years. They've contributed 46 sounds. They're doing it just for the goodness of the world. And of course, you can thank them, or you can come out here and grab their stuff. And again, I like for consistency, because if I find somebody who I like their quality, I might want to go through and do this. There's nothing to say that any of this is quality, too, by the way. You've got to be careful about all this. Again, multiple websites out there. Some of them allow for, again, Creative Commons 0, complete copyright free. Now, when we're looking at these things, we've got to be, again, as I said, very carefully. For instance, I just purchased a license to Artlist. Artlist is music licensing for video. They are really, really awesome. The pricing is great. I say great because it's $25 a month. Actually, you have to buy it for the year. It's $300 a year. But $300 a year is pretty, really awesome because you literally get unlimited music, sound effects, and it's a true universal license. So it means I can do anything I want with it if there's visuals. I don't think they allow you to use it for podcasts. It's kind of a fun little tweak there. What's neat about this also is that every time I download a piece of music, they literally send me a PDF for that piece of music so I can file it away in case someone later date goes, that's not yours. And I go, oh, I bought this. It's pretty neat. So again, for $300, I got everything. And now I have this a license that I can use. I'm not endorsing them. You can actually find people who are endorsing them and they can give you like 2 free months. I'm not one of them, so go and do what you need to do. It's pretty cool out there, but I did actually purchase it. You can also buy individual pieces of music, but you've got to be careful. On certain websites, if you buy a piece of music, again, how many copies? Is there royalties? Do you have to cite it? Can you use it for more than one project? All those things are things that you need to ask. And again, you need to read the fine print. That's why I love the public domain, because there's so many good stuff out there. Or I love websites where I've read the fine print and they're super generic and they go do whatever you want. Makes my life a lot easier as well. All right. So we've covered a lot of material here. We're not done yet. We've got a little bit more to cover. So we've covered the public domain extensively. Again, you're in my class, you're going to still put your citations in, but if you're in the real world, public domain, do whatever you want. Keep track for your own records, though, in case someone says that you did violate the public domain and that it was in the public domain. There's also Creative Commons license, where people have put their stuff out with restrictions. Some of those restrictions are that you can use it without modifying it. Some of them allow you to use it and modify it for commercial purposes with share-alike licenses. Keep track of everything. Make sure your credits are good towards the end. But again, a lot of materials out there have been put out there with a Creative Commons license that allow you to use it both commercially or not, and things like that. And then, of course, there are commercial sites out there that allow you to either purchase individually or subscribe to plans to buy either sound effects or videos you can buy as well, or music or clip art or whatever you're looking for. Remember, you can always hire somebody too. I hire people all the time. I'm surrounded by talented artists and I go, I need a drawing of a blah, blah, blah. And when I buy it from them, I pay for the copyright. I buy the drawing. I say, I'm going to pay you $50 and I'm going to own it. That's the end of that. I give them credit. I tell them I will. But I don't have to even. It's one of those deals that I have to make. So you have to remember all of these things that are out there. Now, remember, anything that is created today is copyrighted. I always joke about copyright because, why would I file a copyright? I think I have one back there. I think there's actually a real copyright behind me. Why would I file a copyright if it's already copyrighted? Well, one of the cool things is the difference between something you filed and something you didn't. Imagine for a moment that you're a poet and you've written a poem and you post that poem on your website and you didn't file the copyright and I stole it from you. Now, if you sue me, you could sue me for actual damages. How much have you lost because I stole your poem? Well, it's a poem on a website. Here's a quarter, kid. Get back to you. I don't mean to be so flippant, but the reality of it is I can only sue for actual damages, how much I lost. But if you had filed a copyright, you could actually file for punitive damages as well. Not just how much did you lose, but how bad did you feel. So there is something to be said for actually filing your copyrights if you need to. That being said, let's try not to sue each other. All right. The last part about this is there are conditions in which we can steal from somebody else and get away with it. I want to be very clear about this. It's still stealing. It's still breaking somebody else's copyright, but it is something we call fair use. And fair use, by the way, is not a right. It is an excuse that we make in court when being sued. Your Honor, I stole that work because, and then of course you list the fair use doctrine that you're dealing with. It doesn't prevent you from getting sued. What it does is it lets you win. Again, my goal here, not to get you sued at all. So one of the cool things about fair use is that there's lots and lots of websites out there on this. There you go. Here's the Stanford Copyright and Fair Use Guidelines. Love it, by the way. At the end of the day, all of these decisions are yours. All these decisions are decisions that you make, and if you make them wrong, you have to deal with the consequences. One of the cool things, of course, with fair use is that the some basic guidelines about when you can use something that you don't own. People talk about percentages all the time. Ignore the percentage conversation. It's not a percentage game. It's literally about whether or not it's right or wrong. You can't say, 5% of it, 10% of it. It's not that, because it could be which 10% as well. It gets confusing. One of the best examples, of course, is commentary and criticism. If you're dealing with the actual item, you can use some of that actual item, even if it's under copyright, because you're discussing it, you're doing commentary and criticism of it. And a few years ago, I did a YouTube video, actually did a presentation that was recorded and placed on YouTube about mashup culture. It was called, what was it called? Learning from the Mashup. Are we blending our future or throwing our future in the blender? And the entire video is one commercial image after the other. I have pictures of Mickey Mouse. I have pictures of Bugs Bunny. I've got pictures of all sorts of copyrighted materials in my video. And YouTube immediately found it and was like, copyright, down. And I'm like, wait. Commentary and criticism, fair use. And they went back on, oh, yeah, you're fine. And they unflagged it and let me put it back online. But I did have to go through those hoops. I had to prove to them that it was commentary and criticism. One of the bigger one, of course, is parody. Parody is a work that ridicules another, usually well-known work, by imitating it in a comic way. Oh my God, is it difficult. You are not funny. I am funny. Everyone thinks they're funny, but you're not funny. It's not just funny, by the way. Did you say the word ridicules another by imitating it in a comic way? There are so many nuances to parody. I really advise you to stay away from it, especially if you're watching this video. Remember, people like Weird Al Yankovic, who are the kings of parody, do not need permission, but they still get it because they feel that just relying on parody rights isn't enough, which I think is awesome, by the way, which shows you how cool Weird Al actually is. Now, the other one I love to talk about is Family Guy. Family Guy, oh my God, they know what they're doing with parody, and they get sued all the time. Now, they always win, but they still get sued. So I really want you to avoid parody. Commentary and criticism is great in an academic environment. That's a cool one. And that goes back to this last bit of this sort of thing. Academic environment. Fair use education. When we talk about education, the fair use education thing doesn't mean I'm just being educational. It means that I'm in an education environment that's usually a closed face-to-face environment. That means if I'm giving a PowerPoint, if I'm a student giving a PowerPoint to my faculty member, or if I'm a faculty member giving a PowerPoint to my students, I can use commercial and copyrighted materials in that PowerPoint as part of their educational experience. That's literally the definition of fair use in education. Does that mean I can post it to YouTube or a website? No, because that's legal publishing and that's different. I'm talking about a closed, very specific environment. And again, that's not what we're talking about here. If you're making a PowerPoint, go to Google Images, grab what you need, as long as it's contextual. Cite however your professor makes you cite. That is not this video. That video is coming, by the way. This video is about how you make materials that you plan on sharing with the world, how you make published public materials. But face-to-face education, fair use in education, is the exact opposite of what we're talking about today. So what we're talking about today is public. Face-to-face education is restricted, it's private, it's exclusive. And that becomes a big deal because sometimes when I give a presentation, I'll go, hey, here's a presentation. They go, are you going to post your slides? And I go, some of them, because some of them I won't be able to. Now, that would be posting the slides. It's kind of funny because when I posted this video, the video is not just a face-to-face education. It actually is an entire commentary and criticism thing. So it falls under a slightly different category. But I want you to know that when it comes to your PowerPoints, again, those closed private PowerPoints, if you go to a website and there's a picture and it says, this is a copyrighted picture, you don't have permission to use it. Yeah, you do. Because you don't need permission to use it. The point of fair use in education is that you get to break the copyright even if it says you can't. Because again, it's not about their permission. It's about you going and doing it. And then you, of course, citing it however your professor wants you to cite it. Can you then do something else with it? No. And that's part of this conversation today. So again, we started at the beginning. We go back from public domain all the way down to fair use. I want you to ask yourself, what are you doing? What is the output? Who's going to get to see it? What are you changing? What are you making? What are the materials? And under what parameters are you going to work? And that means in terms of, are you publishing it? The answer is yes. For the most part, everyone's going to see what you're making. That's the point of making it. And then, of course, asking what citation standards are you going to use? That's an ethical one. In my case, as I'm your professor, that's a demand. If it's personal, if you don't want to cite public domain stuff, you don't have to. The other stuff, you need to. Keep track of everything. Have fun. Take everything I say with a little bit of common sense. If you know it's a picture of Mickey Mouse, don't use it. Anyway, my name is Jared Bendis, and I hope you found this useful guide. There's a lot of websites out there. Read the fine print. Have fun. Take advantage of really good people out there. And when it's your turn to post stuff to the internet, why don't you try doing some of it as well? See how you can give away. Anyway, thanks for watching.